My name is Eincrou, and welcome back to Red Pill Game Reviews. Remember Me. Or is it Remember Me? Is the title of this game a desperate injunction from someone who's afraid of being condemned to anonymity and obscurity? Or is it really just the same question that must be asked after more than half a year with no content on Red Pill Game Reviews? Well, do you remember me? Can you recall what this channel is and what its objectives are? After this long, I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't, or if you never even knew in the first place. So, we will begin this fifth installment in the Red Pill Review series by reiterating the purpose and intent behind these reviews. A Red Pill review is very different from a typical video game review. They aren't meant to be a guide for people researching whether a game is worth purchasing or not. They're long-form critiques of the plots, ideas, and characters in video games, to the exclusion of discussing gameplay mechanics. Red Pill reviews are almost always spoiler-rich, and people who have already played the games being reviewed will probably get the most from them. And it's for these reasons that I don't cover the latest games. And it's very, very important to understand that there is no pretense of neutrality in any of my reviews. They feature my opinions and my views throughout. Yes, I do have an agenda. And that agenda is to maintain video gaming as a place with absolutely unlimited creative freedom to create fictional characters, scenarios, and environments that people, as gamers and consumers, can decide the value of themselves. I believe that this freedom has been all but annihilated in the mainstream of television, films, and novels. And I also believe that we are right now living in a golden age for video gaming, and I would hate to see creative freedom vanish from this form of entertainment as well. Red Pill reviews are my way of sharing my views on the creative designs of video games developers. And even if I do slam aspects of a video game, and let's be honest, that's happened from time to time in these reviews, that is in no way an implication that I believe the developers should have been prevented from making the game in the manner that I did not like, not through external censorship, and certainly not through self-censorship. Let games developers create the games they want to make, and all of us should experience them in our own unique ways. Let games developers create all kinds of things we can enjoy, or, as the case may be, despise with the fury of 1,000 suns.
This gameplay just sucks!
Remember Me is a video game that has plenty of problems from my perspective, but I don't regret my time with this game. Its flaws are only so stark because of their relative dimness when viewed next to the triumphs developer Dontnod has achieved. As I always do, I will share my views on this game in excruciating detail. Now, with that said, welcome to the Red Pill Review for Remember Me. It's a striking game world we have here, would you agree? Neo Paris, in the year 2084, it towers high above and reaches far below the city in France that we know today. The futurism on display here encompasses the glistening apartments and storefronts of the insouciant inhabitants of Saint Michel district.
If you're still suffering from the delusion that you can still get into that size, you need a Sense checkup.
And we also have the decaying tenements and dilapidated street vendors of the insensitively named Slum 404. The art direction in Remember Me is spectacular. rivaling, if not exceeding in some respects, the BioShock series in steampunkish fantasticality. But what struck me, even before any of Neo Paris was revealed, was the unlikely coincidence that the single day that Remember Me takes place on, September 17th, 2084, was the exact same day I started playing the game. Well, I missed the exact date by a few decades, but the odds were still 1 in 366. Yes, 1 in 366, because you gotta realize 2084 is going to be a leap year. Why I even bothered to check that, I cannot tell you. But this day in 2084 is destined to be a pivotal one in the history of Neo Paris. The hero of this tale is Nilin, a 25-year-old woman whose mission today is to recover her lost memory, while also bringing down the most influential corporation in the city, Memorize. Either of these seem like a daunting task at first glance, but Nilin is no ordinary woman. She is a memory hunter, a person capable of using a hunt glove to steal other people's memories. The glove hacks into their sensation engine, or sensen, implants. That's what these weird floating shapes are behind everyone's heads. A direct neural interface with amazing capabilities. You can kind of think of them as like the iPhones of the future. They're a device everyone seems to have, even if they're supposedly poor and impoverished.
Pretty, but you're not my style.
An underclass exists beneath the underclass of Neo Paris, and they're called the Leapers. They are a mutated people who are very aggressive and terrorize everyone. Their minds are a mush, and their sensens barely functional. The Memorize Corporation sells these sensen devices as a way for people to store their memories. Memories can be shared with others as well.
Thanks to my sensen, my husband lives on. Here and here.
And people can visit special kiosks and pay to have false memories implanted, experiencing them in perfect detail, as if they'd actually happened. As you can imagine, this technology has given Memorize immense power, and it essentially controls all of Neo Paris with an iron fist. Nilin was captured, along with many of her criminal compatriots, and their memories were almost completely erased for using their memory hunter status to commit acts of errorism. Oh yeah, you heard me right. Errorism. The cyberpunk is off the charts up in here. We'll come back to Nilin and her mission in due time, but I just wanted to give a general overview to start with. The world of Neo Paris is striking, as I've already said, striking enough that it evoked many thoughts in me that I want to share.
I don't know if I'll ever find the courage to give these memories to my son, but I'm relieved to know that they are all safe and secure.
I've already described the memory storage function of sensen devices, but that is not all they can do. An added benefit of having a machine directly integrated into your neural pathways recording data is that it can also send you data. And this is how the world of Neo Paris is full of augmented reality displays. The developers' commitment to representing this aspect of their vision of the future was total. There are hundreds upon hundreds of unique AR displays throughout the entire game. From critical gameplay information to immersive flavor, this stuff is everywhere. In areas like the La Bastille Penitentiary, nearly every single door tells you exactly what lies beyond the gateway. The presentation of Remember Me is easily its strongest feature. This is the best use of the Unreal Engine 3 I've ever seen, from both an artistic and a technical perspective. The level of detail is incredible. So I mentioned that this game's world surpasses the BioShock series worlds in a few ways. Variety is certainly one of them. Another similarity I can point to with BioShock Infinite in particular is that the beginning of Remember Me has Nilin traveling through highly populated areas as a means of showing everyday life in the sci-fi and fantasy city of Neo Paris. So many action video games, excepting open world ones, have the player character traveling alone or with a team through areas completely bereft of everyday civilian activity. Remember Me does go back to the convention of lonely traveling pretty quickly, but it was nice while it lasted. The best way Remember Me beats the BioShock games, in my opinion, is how it presents what is essentially just magic. What I enjoy most about the steampunk genre is its melding of fantasy and sci-fi in such a way that it can be hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. But with some elements of the BioShock universe, especially plasmids and vigors, it's pretty easy to figure out that they're just straight up magic. There's just no plausible way you could come up with an explanation for how a man could drink a liquid and then shoot out lightning from his fingers.
If I told you a man could shoot lightning from his fingers now, would you believe me?
But with Remember Me, nearly all of the magical stuff has a ready, plausible explanation, even when the game doesn't explicitly provide one. The game even goes full-on techno-surreal at times, and I never doubted the ability of the Sensen to create these otherworldly visualizations. The Spammer is Nilan's ranged weapon, and the way the developers designed this thing is just brilliant. You can kind of think of it as being like a handheld distributed denial of service attack. You can use it to damage people's Sensens, attack robotic enemies, and overload machinery.
I call it the Junk Bolt.
The Junk Bolt upgrade lets it deal physical damage to objects, which makes no sense. But hey, I get that it's for the gameplay purposes. So with the way that the Spammer looks, it looks like it's shooting out pure glitches. In fact, most of the particle and beam effects in this game are technological-looking glowy polygons. Nilan has some superpowers she can activate on cooldown called S-Presence, and they are well integrated into the high-tech fantasy of the setting. They all have to do with overcharging her own Sensen or with disrupting her enemies' devices. Sensen DOS temporarily incapacitates enemies by sending them all a bunch of junk memories, letting Nilan get in some of those cheap shots. This is a genius way of theming and explaining all at the same time a useful gameplay combat mechanic. However, there are some exceptions to this. The combat system's main mechanic, pressins, which are those little colored circles on the bottom of the screen when I'm fighting, I have no idea what they are. I don't know how they work. I don't know who created them, or why my enemies, especially the Saber forces, why don't they use them? But I try not to think too much about this game's awful combat system, so we'll just let that slide for now.
Can make you dance all night.
And another thing I'm a little disappointed by is the prevalence of American and British accents in Neo Paris. I really would have liked to hear more French accents.
Sign the petition so that all may have a right to dignity, liberty, equality, fraternity. Do you remember those promises?
But other than these, the overall cohesiveness between the game's sci-fi mythos and its mechanics and visuals is just fantastic. Of course, the BioShock games did a very good job of achieving this too, but Remember Me knocks it out of the park. I've compared the game world of Remember Me to the BioShock series, but I'm not yet done comparing this to other games I've played. How in the hell could I play this third-person action game with a female playable character who has a British accent?
The name is Nilan. This time, you'll remember me. And they're coming down after you. Well, this is a tomb. I'll make them feel at home.
Which has a heavy emphasis on climbing and jumping and platforming, and not be instantly reminded of the Tomb Raider series, and specifically the Tomb Raider reboot from 2013. Yeah, we're gonna go there, but first let's have a chat about Nilin in her own right.
Subject number 84178, Nilin, errorist. Transfer authorized.
So, she's what's called a memory hunter. She can use a hunt glove to steal people's memories and use them towards her purposes. And what are Nilin's designs? Well, she's part of a small terrorist organization called the Errorists.
You're going to infiltrate the Memorize head office. Find that bitch Scylla and put an end to her reconversion project. Crush her errant beliefs. We must stop her from building an army of leapers.
The Errorists want to bring down the Memorize Corporation and the Sensen Network, and they are fortunate to have Nilin on their side.
Now this is 100% Nilin. Way above the model I used to use. It's beyond me, sister. You're the only one who can use it.
Not only can she steal people's memories, but she can remix them.
You were a memory hunter, Nilin. The best. Other hunters merely pillage memories, but you can remix them.
Remixing memories means forcing people to remember key events in their past differently, which can cause them to behave in a manner more desirable in the present. As far as I'm able to tell, Nilin is the only known memory hunter with the capacity to remix memories.
Post memory wiped. Generating new memorial content.
Good day. Can you hear me?
The game begins with her as an inmate of the new La Bastille Penitentiary, where prisoners have their memories forcibly removed for the duration of their incarcerations, which are to be returned to them upon release.
Please let this be a nightmare.
Now this is already reminding me of Tomb Raider.
No one escapes. Out! Finish it!
In the reboot, developer Crystal Dynamics wanted to show Lara Croft's realistic development from a naive young woman who could barely even hold a pistol into the badass that we all know and love today. And they completely failed.
Damn, she must have killed everyone in the face.
Oh, shit!
Still alive.
What we ended up with was a transition from the regular girl to the badass just as soon as the developers wanted to have awesome gameplay set pieces, and that was, of course, pretty much immediately after the game started. Remember Me definitely is not trying to tell that kind of a story with Nilin, but the arc of her character is similar. She starts out clueless, lost, and afraid, but transitions back into the heiress she once was as the game progresses.
This little Red Riding Hood's got a basket full of kick-ass!
So if the believability of Lara Croft's descent into a mass murderess, or growth, I guess if you want to choose to look at it that way, if her character arc was a failure to portray something believable, does Remember Me succeed where Tomb Raider did not? It's a weird thing having a main character who can't remember who she is or what she's done, because the character herself is just as ignorant as the player, and as the story goes on, the player and the character both learn about Nilin together. Though since it's her own life, I would expect her to have a much more pronounced reaction to revelations about who she is. Instead, Nilin's demeanor is generally flat and emotionally subdued. The voice actress tries to convey some emotion, and I think she did a pretty good job with what she had to work with. But the script itself, it didn't really call for too much of it.
His mind. It was like a bubbling sea of rage and suffering.
Get out of the metro. There's all kinds of things lurking down there.
At first, I thought that this was because her personality had basically been erased or something. And as time went along, she would regain a more typical psychological profile as she remembered herself.
As emergency teams flounder in the wake of the Saint Michel flood, the enigmatic errorist leader, known simply as Edge, has taken credit for this outrageously cruel act of sabotage.
When Nilin realizes that her guardian and the founder of errorism, Edge, has tricked her into a dastardly act of terror and murder that floods the Saint Michel district and kills hundreds of people, the deaths she is directly responsible for don't quite perturb her as much as I would expect.
Why did I do what he asked? I could have left the city. Invented myself a new life somewhere else. But I wanted to come back to being public enemy number one. Was it part of who I am?
And after a brief brush, ever so slight brush, with philosophic cliches, Nilin basically says, meh, I'll think about all those thousands of disrupted lives later. I've got my own problems.
Only a militant believes that the ends always justify the means. Ed revealed to me that my memory had been conserved in the fortress of the Bastille since my conviction.
And she immediately turns her attention to her own problems.
I have to go there and recover my true self.
Her next move is to sneak back into La Bastille, where her memories are still being held hostage. One woman assaulting a maximum security prison, armed with just her fists and a hunt glove.
This is Orly 1242, engaging fugitive.
Good plan.
Oh, shit.
These surreal introductory sequences at the start of each episode are one of my biggest problems with the storytelling in Remember Me. With a few notable exceptions, almost all of Nilin's development takes place in these weird and disjointed interludes. Outside of these, the developers didn't do much exploration into Nilin's situation and her coming to terms with who she really is. The closest she really comes to in-field introspection is when she bizarrely talks to herself in the third person.
Damn it, Nilin. Like a bug in a jar. Come on, Nilin. You can make it. Just stay out of the light, Nilin.
Oh shit. Don't make a sound, Laura.
As I said, there are some climactic exceptions, but this is how the developers chose to do things for the most part. There are tons of dialogues in the game, but they're mostly directly related to the task at hand.
There's an elevator in front of you. It'll take you below the Bastille. There, you'll understand everything.
I really didn't enjoy this, guys. I just hated how unresponsive and dull Nilin is as a character. She's in this fantastic game world, but this frankly boring main character just vacuums and sucks the magic out of the experience into this purposeless just void. Why did Dontnod decide to make their hero the stereotypical grizzled, amoral, and world-weary mass murderer? They created a player character who is a quarter East Indian, quarter African, and half European young woman. So clearly they must have had their eyes on that prize called originality, or at the very least, uniqueness. They wanted to give gamers something different, thought-provoking and interesting, and they certainly did with the environment of Neo Paris. But I feel that this Nilin character is just lacking. I actively wanted to get that feeling of connection to her cause, and there were moments when I did, but at the end of the day, it's so hard to give a shit about someone who doesn't give a shit about killing hundreds of civilians.
Why did you do this to us?
Forget me.
This game is not a carnage and destruction simulator where you're supposed to escape into the role of a madman.
Try to transport fuel now, you pipeline jerks!
This is a highly linear and plot-driven game that, to truly succeed, needs to make the player feel engaged in the story and characters. The worst moment of the entire game for me was when Nilin recovered an incomplete set of her memories deep in the heart of La Bastille. This was bad, not only because pre-rendered cutscenes running at 720p, 30 frames per second look fucking awful on a 1440p display, but because Nilin barely reacts to a flood of realization of who she is and what she has done.
Edge! This is only a partial restore. There are still holes. I can feel them. Blind spots. It's not the whole picture.
This should have been the mid-game climax that revealed some unexpected truths. No. No, nothing of the sort. Instead, all I got was this shitty cutscene.
Oh God! My crime, I remember. I killed him.
I want to know what's going through Nilin's head, not some speech from Edge. Even though a lot of former terrorists have had their memories returned and have escaped their incarceration, the game completely forgets about them and they have no impact at all on the rest of the story.
Finally, long-buried convictions, forged stronger by their captivity, rise through the turmoil and reforge their humanity. Nothing can stop our comrades.
So, no. Despite Tomb Raider's myriad problems, Remember Me does not do a better job in my opinion. Yeah, okay, so Lara Croft's demeanor was completely incongruent with the trail of dead bodies she was leaving in her wake, but at least at some basic level, she was a character that I could get into. Her affableness made zero sense, but at least it was there.
I hate tombs.
Well, if Nilin isn't that great, maybe there are at least some interesting personalities in the supporting cast, right? No, not really. In fact, there are surprisingly few character interactions in the game at all. And this really just further contributes to that feeling of the game not quite living up to the epic scope that its visionary sci-fi concept would imply. Edge is really the only other character we experience throughout the full course of the game. He says he has to keep his location a secret, so he's really just a voice until the very, very end.
Couldn't he have done that this morning when I was there?
No, we had to drain Slum 404's lower levels first.
You got everything planned out, huh?
At the start of the game, Nilin comes across the first Plat news story, and it's about how a dangerous terrorist has just escaped from La Bastille. Wonder who that could be. Maggie informs us that the number of terrorists on the street has just doubled.
The number of terrorists freely roaming our beloved city doubled. Unaccounted. Remember, Maggie told you first.
Yeah, the escape of one convict has resulted in a doubling, since all of the rest are still imprisoned, of course. The only other terrorist walking the streets is Bad Request, who barely gets any attention in the game.
What's this Bad Request guy look like?
Young, nervous, dumb haircut.
Bad Request. Bad Request. What have you guys got with these corny names?
And by the time he does start to play a larger role, he's literally a walking vegetable.
The doctor inside my head.
Little chance of interesting interactions here. There are also Tommy, the former memory hunter.
You really can't remember this pretty boy face of mine?
and Olga, the bounty hunter. She's the subject of the first memory remix of the game, and Nilin is able to make Olga want to destroy Memorize rather than collect the price on her head. Clever girl. Olga now thinks that Memorize killed her husband, but conveniently she never learns the truth that he's actually still alive. Now, ordinarily that would be really freaking suspicious, but at least the game takes place over just a single day, so I guess it's possible that she could never find out. Other than this first remix, Olga is a completely unused character.
Do you still plan to take down Memorize?
Yes.
Then we share the same enemy.
She's the typical roguey rogue type of bounty hunter, talking tough and throwing her weight around all over the place.
Just because you're not on my list doesn't make us drinking buddies.
Don't sweat it.
But in the end, her only purpose in Remember Me is to be Nilin's chauffeur.
We're gonna drink a toast to David when this is all over.
Thank you, Olga.
Now, the ironic thing is that in episode 3, Maggie tells us of an attack on the hospital where her husband had been a patient.
The cause of the blast is as yet unknown, but initial estimates put casualties at 100 dead and several thousand wounded.
The game never explains exactly what happened, but I presume that Olga had attacked it in a rage over her false memory Nilin had implanted, thereby actually killing her husband for real. So, there you have it, even more innocent blood on Nilin's hands. But does Nilin give a shit? For that matter, does the game even give a shit? Nope. Just lets it float on past. Come on, Dontnod. Really? This is lame. There are several more minor characters, but there's really not too much interesting to say about them. Where things do get interesting is when we look at Nilin's mother and father.
He's the boss of Memorize.
No. He's the star genius, the capricious talent that gets to tinker away in his ivory tower. Memorize CEO is his wife, Scylla Cartier-Wells. One name, two heads, 1,000 reasons to bite your fingernails.
Nilin. My child.
Surprise, surprise. They're the CEO and president of Memorize, the Cartier-Wells.
Your despair will make my fortune.
Nilin's mother is a hard-ass, only concerned with the profits to be had.
Fear and discord are on our side. These floods give us the perfect mandate to launch the reconversion project. Projections predict 2-digit margins for the next quarter. So we are going to ride this tide and wait for the profits to roll in.
Okay, so Miss Cartier-Wells is an uber queen bitch.
She's most focused on something called the Reconversion Project, which seeks to control the Leapers and force them into providing productive services.
The Reconversion Project by Memorize. Humane responses to barbaric perils.
Her father is the genius visionary who invented the Sen network, and he created a commune for the elite called Memopolis.
Tell me about my father, Edge.
Charles Cartier-Wells has walled himself away for years, dreaming of his ideal future.
As we learn during the course of events, the horrible things Memorize is doing all trace back to a single event in Nilin's childhood.
Mummy's just trying to keep you safe. We must never do that again. Okay?
Scylla blamed Nilin for the crash, and her heart hardened thereafter.
Mummy?
Nilin! Mummy told you! See what happens? Nilin! My leg! This is your fault!
I'm sorry, Mummy. I'm sorry.
By the powers of a memory remix, Nilin changed her memory of events such that Scylla blamed herself.
Oh, shit! The memo.
Bad word, bad word.
Daddy's gonna kill me.
Mommy?
Nilin? It's all right. It's nothing. It's my fault, my darling. My leg.
Mommy! Mommy!
And conveniently, this leads to her immediately deciding to cancel the reconversion project.
Philippe, tomorrow morning we will reevaluate the strategy for the reconversion project.
What? You're telling me that Scylla went from evil to good on the basis of who she believed was responsible for the accident in which she lost a leg? I don't... Oh my God. Okay, I mean, I don't have any great arguments for why that's not plausible, but it does seem odd to me. So, what's the father's deal then? He's Charles Cartier-Wells, and while his issue is related to Scylla's, it's completely different. He invented memory remixing in an effort to fix the damage that had been done to his family by the car accident.
But be still now. I'm going to make everything right again.
He couldn't restore Scylla's lost leg, of course, but he did think he could alter the painful memories. His first test subject was Nilin, and it worked. Nilin's recollection of that night was changed to erase the crash completely from her memory. This success inspired Charles to pursue his memory technologies with full gusto.
I've done it, Scylla. I found a cure for misery.
To convince him that Sensen itself needed to be shut down, Nilin remixed Charles' memory of remixing Nilin's memory. Okay, let's stop right here. Let me say that again, slowly for comprehension. Charles' memory of remixing Nilin's memory was remixed by Nilin such that he believed he had killed Nilin by triggering a memory bug. Now that is certainly an awesome idea, but it ends up being completely anticlimactic. Jesus Christ, Dontnod, how could you screw this up?
You remixed the remix. It's very clever.
You must stop everything, Papa. The experiments, the abuses, the lies. The entire world is dying from an overdose of amnesia and false memories.
Regardless, I enjoyed the scene where the family is reunited and Nilin's parents decide to let her shut down the Sensen central server hub. It was probably my favorite moment in the story.
Identities confirmed. Access to memorial servers authorized.
You're a better, stronger Cartier-Wells than either me or your father. I'm proud of you, my daughter.
Not listening, go away.
And here's the big reveal. Yes. Edge is the central server hub, also known as H3O.
Who are you? Really?
I am Edge. I am a spontaneous entity born from the putrid pits where everyone flushed their most horrible and painful memories. I am H3O. My first memories are the tears of a girl. I am the child of Memrise and its worst enemy. I am the father of the Leapers and their grim reaper. I am your friend. You must kill me.
Edge. Edge, I don't want to fight you.
I am H3O. Edge was just a part of me, an agent,
created, partitioned, and sent on its way to find you and bring you here. I am H3O. I am Sensen. I am the Leapers. Kill us.
This final boss fight here, guys, makes no sense. Now, I've had my difficulties with shutting down computer hardware. I'm sure we all have, but I've never had to go into some virtual reality simulation combat zone type thing instead of just pulling the power plug out of the wall. And why didn't Charles himself shut it down? Why did he send Nilin? It is a video game after all, so an epic final boss, you gotta have one of those. Whatever. So if Edge is H3O, the central storage for all Sensen memories, that means he must have known all about Nilin, or at least most of it. Maybe he didn't directly possess Nilin's memories, but at least he could piece things together from bits and bobs and shits from other people who knew or had encountered Nilin. But he never tells her anything. Maybe he just thought stringing her along would better serve his suicidal purposes. And one other plot point that I wonder about is, if Memorize is so powerful and they own Neo Paris' security force Saber, why did the Cartier-Wells allow their daughter to experience harsh treatment in La Bastille? Maybe the pre-remix Scylla didn't care too much for Nilin, but Charles, he definitely did. There are just so many dramatic avenues Remember Me could have explored, but sadly they didn't.
I'm sorry, Edge.
Where Remember Me does dare to explore, which was of great interest to me, was a vision of the future that is undeniably left progressive. Yes, there's the obvious exception of Neo Paris being run by a callous megacorporation. But did you notice who runs said callous megacorporation? A duo of interracially married people. There is a huge amount of backstory logged within the collectible Mnesis devices. Or is it Mesist or Mnesis? I have no idea how to pronounce it, but thankfully it's nowhere else in the script, so fuck it. Mnesis. I missed finding a few, so I haven't read them all, but they talk about a horrific European war and massive migrations of populations as climate change takes its toll on coastal regions. So Dontnod's vision of the future is not one in which the goals progressivism is promoting today have completely succeeded, but it does paint a rosy picture for some other things. Even in the multiracial slums of Neo Paris, there aren't groups organized around race.
No mercy for memory thieves! No!
The greatest worry of the average person seems to be junkies, addicted to stealing other people's pleasant memories.
You're 2 steps away from fragmentation.
Anything, man. I just want to remember something happy.
Somehow, all religions appear to have been eradicated, most interestingly, including Islam. Obviously, it would be risky for Dontnod to attempt to portray this religion, which is currently rapidly growing in Europe, but to portray a completely secular Neo Paris seems like a bit of a cop-out to me. The furthest they were willing to go in showing religion was a ranting street preacher. Of course, Notre Dame de Paris has survived, or maybe it was just rebuilt, I don't know for sure. And there also appears to be a religiously inspired temple visible in the Neo Paris skyline, but these examples are about as far as it goes. It certainly seems like women have reached their full potential by 2084. There are several women in positions of prominence other than Scylla Cartier-Wells. The most famous architect of Neo Paris' magnificent skyscrapers is Carrie Sheridan. She's a great technical mind, working on a 30-year plan to rebuild Neo Paris after its destruction in the Great European Civil War. The warden of La Bastille is the sinister Madame.
Madam, we have a security breach in the guards' locker room.
The only person allowed to play with memories here is me.
You know, I made a conscious effort to go into this Red Pill review of Remember Me without any preconceptions or bias, despite this game having received praise for the unusual biological qualities of its leading character. This game has been held up as where the industry needs to be going. If this game shows the direction video gaming needs to be going in, it won't be because of the novelty of a multiracial female player character. No, it will be because of the qualities of the video game that are directly relevant to the enjoyment of the video gaming experience. Sadly, I don't think Dontnod did too well in those areas of story, characters, and gameplay. I won't be discussing the gameplay now, but it suffices to say that the game barely has any gameplay. So I didn't, and I still don't, have any inclination to hate on this game unnecessarily. Any criticisms I've shared, I believe I have given solid explanations for, even if they're subjective. I truly believe that I have given Remember Me every possible chance to show me what it's got. But I do still have a certain way of looking at the games that I play, and there are some things I couldn't help but notice. Dontnod clearly made a conscious effort to give female characters big roles in Remember Me. I don't think there's really any doubt about that. Which makes the fact that Nilin fights only against robots and male humans or male-looking leapers all the more blindingly obvious. The one woman, count it, one woman that Nilin directly kills is Madame, and that fight takes place mostly in virtual reality. But as for the goon-type cannon fodder enemies, they quite clearly made the intentional decision that Saber Force would field 0 women within its ranks. They decided that there would be no opportunity to do these surprisingly brutal techno executions on females. Now, I don't necessarily believe that this was a wrong decision, but I am genuinely curious as to why they decided to do it like this. As far as I know, the game never explains how Nilin learned how to beat up heavily armored men with just her fists and her pressing skills. Whatever happened with Nilin to allow her to kill hundreds of male Saber agents, surely Saber Force would want female agents who were just as effective at mortal violence as her.
Careful, you might break a nail.
Or maybe not. The Saber agents taunt Nilin by calling her a little girl and assorted other references to her femaleness.
You're done for, little lady.
Other than some random NPC chatter at the start of the game, this is pretty much the only time that the game explicitly acknowledges that Nilin is a woman.
You're cute, but I'm busy. What you brush your hair with? A grenade?
So in effect, the fact that Nilin is a woman is relevant only because of her female character model, female voice actress, and a few pronouns in the game's script. What I would really like to see is developers trying harder to make their female lead characters more than just a reskin of a character that could have easily been male. Now, I realize that this is extremely difficult to do for an action hero, but come on, games developers, I believe in your creativity, and I believe you can do it. Get it done. Remember Me does not at any point take it upon itself to preach about any of its non-standard characters. The backstory about the horrors of climate change resulting in 5 billion deaths is completely contained within the Mnesis text logs. There's that word again. Whatever. It's not a game that forces a political agenda onto its players, and it's not what Vox Day would call pink science fiction or fantasy. There are no boring romance storylines here at all, and thank you for that. This game is not anything like the stuff coming out of the propaganda factory we previously knew as BioWare. The half-Indian, half-Ethiopian woman in charge in Remember Me makes perfect sense within the universe it takes place. The same cannot be said for the black woman in charge in Dragon Age Inquisition. BioWare, you want to take this route? Fine, be my guest. But at least take a few lessons from Dontnod and how to properly integrate it into your games. Alright, so let's come to a conclusion on this game. I did enjoy this game for its extremely well-realized futuristic world, and also for the sum of its other flawed aspects. I read as many of the detailed and interesting Nemesis logs. God damn it, there it is again. I read as many of the detailed and interesting Nemesis logs as I could, and they left me desperately wanting another game set in this universe, even though the end of the game doesn't seem to leave much room for a sequel. The game dips into potentially politically correct themes, but it does so without destroying the game. Remember Me may have that much vaunted female lead character, but this is not merely an interactive version of a chick flick. It's a game that was designed to appeal to the primary audience of core gaming, which is still predominantly male. Okay, sure, having a woman as the main character of what is essentially a Batman Arkham series type melee brawler is kinda iffy. But given that this stuff would also be impossible for any male short of Batman himself, I just can't seem to give too much of a damn about that, guys. I really honestly can't. I am going to go with 3 red pills on this one. This game could have been terrible from a red pill perspective, and I suspect that some viewers might think that it is. But it seems like the fact that this game needed to recoup its AAA production costs tempered any possible blue pill insanity.
We could only look past our differences to see what we have in common. We can work together to make our school a better place. Let us let our differences weave us into a rich tapestry of harmony, instead of tearing us apart in an angry mob of bigotry and hate.
Get him!
I didn't see that coming. I did.
I don't know, maybe you guys will think I went way too easy on this one. All I can say is that this red pill review contains my honest impressions after completing Remember Me, but I am very interested to hear others' opinions on this one. That's gonna do it for this red pill review of Remember Me. I really appreciate those of you who watch my videos until the end. My name is Eincrou, and if I survive to make another episode, I will see you all in the next installment of Red Pill Game Reviews. Thank you for watching.
In your face.